A quick glance at the garden at this time of the year could easily make you think that this season is all but over. Fortunately, we know better than that. Aside from the garlic, which always gets planted in the long shadows of fall, many crops actually look and perform their best as the summer winds down and the drought and heat subside. In today's collection of quickies, we'll be looking at maximizing the last harvest of those peppers, picking those juicy watermelons, curing that amazing garlic, and planting out all of our cool weather crops. Okay. Still lots to do in the garden, so in case you missed it, here's episodes 161 to 170. Enjoy. Tomato leaves, just like the fruit, come in many different shapes and sizes. One noticeable summer trait that all tomato leaves can get, however, is the dreaded leaf curl. Now, there's a few reasons why this happens, but usually it's due to one common cause. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome back to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we'll help you uncurl all these leaves. And today's episode is all about why they do it, what's going on behind this phenomenon, and what can we do to stop or even prevent it. Hey, time's short as you know it is, so let's get into it. As we said off the top, tomatoes can curl their leaves for a few different reasons. Chemicals and herbicides can definitely cause this to happen, as can the actual tomato yellow leaf curl virus. But a far more common cause of your tomato plants curling their leaves is stress of the physiological kind, namely two types, excessive heat and intermittent drought. As an amazing survival mechanism, tomato plants will actually curl in their own leaves in times of stress to help mitigate any water loss. And not just any water loss, we're talking the kind that can kill the plant. High heat, wind, and low available moisture all contribute to this. For many of the large leaf varieties, it's unavoidable, no matter how much you water, because the issue isn't always a moist versus a dry soil. Often, even in the presence of sufficient available water, the plant knows that its roots can't replenish the water to the foliage as fast as it's being lost. Now, for sure the plants are going to suffer if the problems persist. But a few instances during the hottest days of the summer here and there should present no lingering problems. Breathe a sigh of relief and know that most tomato plants can pull through this response unscathed. But they'll only do it if you check out the next episode of the Garden Quickie. Three months ago, my season officially started. For strawberries, that is. Delicious globes of pure red sweetness, ripe and ready to go, as the rest of the garden was just waking up. Such is the life and vigor of the ever-bearing strawberry. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we've got some vigor too. And today's episode is all about strawberries. More specifically though, June-bearing versus ever-bearing. What's the difference and which one is better? Hey, time short as you know it is, so let's dive in. In the world of strawberries, there's two main types, categorized on how and when they complete their flower fruit cycles. On the one hand, we have June-bearing varieties that produce their entire crop of berries in a short 2 to 3 week span, early to midsummer. The fruit are larger, and that single harvest is the bigger of the two types. On the flip side, we have the ever-bearing types of strawberries. These are the kinds that I mostly grow here. As you've seen in my videos, they tend to start producing a little bit earlier, sometimes as early as mid-spring. The berries themselves are usually a bit smaller, as are the harvests. The initial flush of berries from these guys actually lasts quite a long time, and it's followed by more throughout the summer, sometimes even into fall. As for which type is better, well, that comes down to personal preference. Some people love the all-at-once harvest of the June-bearing types, while others prefer the constant giving nature of the ever-bearing varieties. When in doubt, throw caution to the wind and just grow both. And while you're at it, don't forget to check out the next episode of the Garden Quickie. It's been so long since we planted it, the idea of actually harvesting our garlic must seem like fantasy by now. But truly, the time is upon us. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome back to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we turn fantasy into reality. And today's episode is all about that garlic. More specifically, knowing exactly when it's finally ready to pull up and harvest. Hey, time short as it always is, so let's dive in. For those of you new to the garlic growing game, here's a little life cycle recap so that the rest of the video makes sense. In northern parts of the world, those areas with the real winter, hardneck garlic is planted in the fall about 4 to 6 weeks before that first frost. Overwintered in its shallow resting spot, it's cared for all the following spring and then finally harvested early to midsummer. Easy stuff, but that's a pretty broad range. How do we know the exact time when garlic is truly ready to harvest? Calendar dates are nothing but a useful guidance, so we turn to the plants themselves to tell us when they're ready. And the most reliable signal that we get that tells us it's finally time to harvest our garlic comes from the foliage. You see, garlic bulbs, like onions, are simply layers and layers of modified leaves. And it's the dead and dying ones that not only protect and store the bulbs, but also indicate when they're ready to harvest. So, the hard and fast rule, and this works for most hardneck varieties, is when half the leaves on your garlic plant are brown and crispy, well, it's time to pull up the bulbs. This timing is very important, and we've covered it in other videos. Too early, and your garlic won't have developed the protective wrappers necessary for long-term storage. But too late, and those cloves will bust through, and that protective wrapper will be rendered useless. As you can see, timing is key. But zoom out a little bit, and you'll see that that window is pretty forgiving. What isn't forgiving, though, would be missing the next episode of the Garden Quickie. Healthy seedlings, good soil, nice even moisture, and full sunlight. You've done everything right by your pepper plants, but could you be doing more? As a fairly long crop that's far from maintenance free, nothing's worse than growing these guys out for a harvest of just a couple of measly peppers. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we turn measly into mountains. And today's episode is all about pepper yields. More specifically, 3 ways that you can elevate your pepper harvest this summer. Time short to pack it all in, so let's get started. To reach that pepper harvest nirvana, we're going to assume that you've already set up your plants for the best chance of success. Sprouted them early to give them that head start, hardened them off in the late spring in preparation for planting, and buried them deep in a rich, well-drained soil in the sunniest spot you could find. Congrats, because that's basically the bare minimum that we can do for peppers. If we really want to stretch these guys and max out those yields, there's a few more things that we can do. And the first of those is to be careful with the fertilizer. Early on, we want our pepper plants to grow as big and healthy as possible, because as you know, bigger plants supports bigger harvests. And in the beginning, we accomplish this through high nitrogen fertilizers. Works great initially. However, With the onset of flowers and the subsequent fruit, we must dial back that nitrogen and balance it out with the other two macronutrients, phosphorus and potassium. So, when you start to see those flowers, and especially that fruit, eliminate all nitrogen-heavy fertilizers altogether. Now, for the plant to uptake those nutrients, whichever ones it needs, it's going to require moisture. Constant, steady, even moisture is always going to be the recipe to grow the best pepper plants. Besides always watering deeply and thoroughly, the best way to accomplish this is to mulch. Evening out those extreme summer temperatures while locking in that valuable moisture is the key to sending your pepper production through the roof. 2 inches is ideal, applied directly after planting. And our third and final pepper booster today is to simply harvest. You see, our pepper plants are always going to be limited by what's called their fruit load, which is basically the maximum amount of fruit that they can support at any given time. Increase yields by constantly harvesting and having the plants replace the ones that you pick. You know, pick more to get more. And speaking of more, if you have other pepper growing secrets, please share them and leave a comment down below. And while you're at it, don't forget to check out the next episode of the Garden Quickie. Ah, summer. Bounty everywhere, and the fruits of our labor finally coming to fruition. We're harvesting like crazy right now, and at this time of the year, planting out fresh crops really isn't on our radar right now, but it should be. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we'll plant anywhere at any time. And today's episode is all about that planting late. More specifically, the benefits of a midsummer, mid-season planting. I got 3 today, time short as it always is, so let's dive in. Late winter, early spring is a lovely time of year to be a gardener. We've got the whole season ahead of us, and virtually any crop is on the menu to plant, or at least pre-start early indoors. Right now, though, being selective is the name of the game. But even with the limited choices that we have, there are benefits into getting new crops into the ground. And the first of those is that these seeds are going to germinate much faster. No doubt in those cool days of spring, it can take forever for your peas, carrots, and beets to finally sprout and get going. As long as you pre-soak the soil and you can keep those top layers nice and moist, the added heat at this time of the year is a huge plus. Another big benefit that's often overlooked with spring growing fever is that the timing of the harvest can really line up with certain crops at this time of the year. No question, the warm weather produces some big bounty. But you know what? Not all crops can benefit from this. Some plants and their harvest just taste infinitely better once the temperatures start to cool. I'm talking arugula, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, collards, kale, lettuce, spinach, and Swiss chard, just to name a few. Planting now times those crops with a cooler fall harvest just perfectly. And our third benefit of planting now, over halfway through the season, is less pests. Infinitely less pests. Just like our favorite crops, many insect invaders time their life cycles with the breaking of winter dormancy. Oh, come on. Absolutely exploding with population growth to take advantage of the buffet of greenery that's bursting out at exactly the same time. Without a doubt, during the spring and summer, this can be devastating. This time of year, however, many pests are either non-existent or completely kept in check by the balance of the good guys doing their thing. It really is a much safer time of year to grow. So, not only will your plants sprout faster and taste better, but also have less pest outbreaks. What could possibly be better? The only thing that I could think of would be to watch the next episode of the Garden Quickie. A crop nearly 10 months in the making, spanning all 4 seasons, harvested all at once at the exact right time for an epic midsummer yield. Only now, we're left with so much garlic, we couldn't possibly use it all right away. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, there's simply no such thing as too much garlic. And today's episode is all about that garlic. More specifically, how to cure our harvested garlic for maximum storage so that none of it goes to waste. Hey, time short as you know it is, so let's dive in. When garlic is harvested properly, at the right time, those outer leaves are allowed to dry off and form a protective sheath around the bulb. If done correctly, this is half the work for curing garlic already done. As long as you time your garlic harvest when 1/2 to 2/3 of the foliage has turned brown and crispy, storing your garlic long term is super easy. First, make sure to harvest with care. Damaged or broken bulbs will not store, so don't even try. Further to that, we leave the plants whole. In fact, we don't even clean them at this time. Leave all those roots, dead shoots, and even the dirt on them. We'll deal with that stuff later. Your main objective right now is to hang them in a cool, dry location for around 2 to 4 weeks. I always do it for at least 4 weeks because I find the drier the better. Now, make sure to hang them bulb side down just in case the stems and foliage want to drain down any goodness back to the bulbs. Once you're certain those bulbs are fully dry, all that we have left to do is clean them. This is a 3-step process and it's really simple. First, trim off those roots right back to the base of the bulb. Next, cut off that stem to about 1 inch in length. And finally, peel off the dirty outermost papery coating, revealing the gem of a garlic bulb inside. Sometimes you do need to remove 2 of them, but no more. All we want to do is remove the dirt. And that's it. Kept in a cool, dry place, your garlic is going to store this way for up to 6+ months, easy. Almost as easy as subscribing and checking out the next episode of the Garden Quickie. No doubt root crops are tough cookies. Not just because the bulk of their action occurs below the soil, but they're also tough on us because we can't quite see what they're doing, nor when they're ready to pick. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome back to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we can be pretty tough too. And today's episode is all about harvesting those carrots. More specifically though, what clues do we get that tell us that our carrots are actually ready? Hey, time short as you know it is, so let's dive in. Unlike a lot of the other plants we grow, the beauty of harvesting carrots is that they're always ripe. Meaning that with these guys, we never have to wait till the crop is fully mature to start harvesting. As soon as that taproot gets its color and swells up even just slightly, we can pick them. As a mass-seeded crop, this gives you a huge range in which you could harvest your carrots. I'm talking 30, 40, 50, upwards of 90 to 100 days later. However, when growing them to full term, regardless of variety, carrots will give us 3 signs to let us know that they're ready and that they've reached maturity. First, one sign that's often used commercially, although I don't find it to be as reliable as the other 2, is the size of the foliage. The theory is, once your carrot tops have reached 12 inches of height or greater, they should be ready to pick. It will work for most carrot varieties, yes, but I do find it to be the weakest of the 3 harvest signals. More reliable, however, is looking further down that stem to see what's called the shoulder of the carrot. Once you start to see actual carrots poking themselves out of the soil, and those taproots are around 1 inch in diameter, you know they're ready to harvest. And lastly, Our third sign that our carrots have reached full maturity and max size is that the seed packet has told us so. I know it seems obvious, but all varieties of carrots can grow at different speeds. When grown in the moderate intervals of late spring and early fall, those time to harvest estimates on the back of your carrot seed packs are surprisingly accurate. And lucky for us, every seed packet that you buy is gonna have this information. Count forwards from the day you sowed your seeds, and you should be good to go. Know what else will make you good to go? Subscribing and checking out the next episode of the Garden Quickie. Although they're fairly easy to grow, they do take up a lot of resources and a decent amount of time to go from a viable seed to a viable harvest. That's right, we're talking watermelons. The homegrown ones are simply unbelievable. But as a fruit that does not ripen off the vine, we really only got one chance at the harvest. The window for watermelons is pretty exact. Pick too soon, and that flesh is inedible. Left too long though, and the whole thing is just a watery mess. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, timing is our specialty. And today's episode is all about those watermelons. More specifically, when are your watermelons ready to pick? There's a few ways to know for sure. I got 3 today. Time short as it always is. So let's dive in. Literally every seed packet for every crop has a wealth of information on the back of the package. Our watermelons are no different. And we can use this information to predict the ripeness. Take either the days to harvest or matures in number and count forward from the day you sow your seeds. Unless you've pre-started your watermelon seedlings ridiculously early indoors, or you've had some unusually weird weather, generally, those numbers are pretty accurate. Another way that's even more accurate is to check the rind or skin of the watermelon itself. When young and immature, the skin of a watermelon is quite shiny and has a definite sheen to it. As the melons ripen, that sheen disappears to a dull, smooth, flat surface. Also, for the stripe varieties, like this sugar baby here, the stripes become even more pronounced with even more contrast. And lastly, the third way to tell that our vine watermelons are finally ripe are the tendrils. Amazingly, these modified stem parts, while green and growing for the majority of the life of the plant, turn brown just as the fruit itself ripens. It's uncanny and it's very accurate. You'll want to keep an eye on the tendril that's right next in line after the melon. When it goes brown and crispy, you know that the watermelon is ready. And one bonus indicator while you're picking it, the watermelon will have a flat yellow spot on the bottom. If you see that, as well as the brown tendril, you know you're good to go. Easy stuff. Almost as easy as subscribing and checking out the next episode of the Garden Quickie. Location, location, location. There's no question that in gardening, it's super important to get it right. With garlic though, a crop that can take up to 9 months to grow all the way to harvest, it's non-negotiable. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, we put you where you need to be so that your plants are as well. And today's episode is all about planting that garlic. More specifically, picking the right location to plant your cloves this fall to max out that bulb size next summer. Time short as you know it is, so let's dive in. For those new to the garlic growing game, you're not alone. Check out that video right there for a complete primer on all things growing garlic. Like we mentioned, garlic, particularly the hardneck kind, is an extremely long crop. 8 or 9 months, sometimes more, so you gotta get the location right. And for garlic, that means two things: full sun and excellent drainage. Garlic, like all alliums, is a full sun crop, requiring 6+ hours a day of direct sunlight to grow properly. Now, they don't actually need this sort of sun exposure until the spring, which for me is about 5 to 6 months away from this planting. So, if you're currently battling the fall shadows, fear not. It's only the last 3 months or so of the garlic's life cycle where it needs that much sun. For drainage though, this one's always important, right from that time of planting. Wet, soggy cloves will quickly become dead, rotten ones. I can't stress this enough. At all stages of its life cycle, garlic simply can't handle poor drainage, standing water, or subpar aeration at all. The soil does have to be able to hold on to moisture, however, so we can't grow our garlic in plain sand. But excess water has to go. This is why container garlic is so popular. You can simply move them to where the sun is, and drainage is rarely a problem as long as you choose the right pots. No doubt, garlic planting season is fast approaching, and the right spot with the right soil is going to make all the difference to your harvest. As will subscribing and checking out the next episode of the Garden Quickie. Brassicas, a large popular group of cruciferous crops that are pretty simple and straightforward to grow. That is, until they're not. No doubt, these guys can be more temperamental than other plants, which leads many people to give up on them. Hi, I'm Jeff from the Ripe Tomato Farms. Welcome back to another episode of the Garden Quickie, the show where in 2 minutes or less, giving up is not an option. And today's episode is all about those brassicas. More specifically, 3 quick planting tips to ensure that you have the most success. Hey, time's short as you know it is, so let's dive in. In case you didn't know, common brassica crops such as cauliflower, broccoli, kale, cabbage, and even Brussels sprouts are all the same species, Brassica oleracea. They're normally considered cool weather crops, which brings us to our first planting tip, and that's timing. Although most of them prefer to grow in direct sunlight, brassicas as a whole don't enjoy the hot weather. And this is especially apparent during fruiting time. Thus, we need to be diligent when planting these crops. Now, they can take upwards of 60 to 100 days to harvest, so always check the variety that you're growing and count forward so that you're harvesting in an optimal window. The second planting tip for brassicas is to always be mulching. Eliminate those weeds and don't give the bugs a place to hide. Lock in that valuable soil moisture and mitigate those extreme temperatures, both the hot and the cold. Straw, shredded leaves, and even grass clippings can make a world of difference. I know I say this for pretty much all plants, but in the world of brassicas, mulching is not optional. And finally, our third brassica planting tip for the day is to give them their space. You see, all too often when young brassicas are planted from transplants like this, they're put way too close together. It may not seem like anything now, but brassicas eventually become large plants, and when they're overcrowded is when they seem to suffer the most. Space all varieties at least 1.5 to 2 feet from each other, and the rows at least 3 feet apart. Trust me, it's only with this kind of spacing that you're going to end up with happy brassicas. Even happier though would be subscribing and checking out the next episode of the Garden Quickie. Thanks for watching, guys. And hey, if Garden Quickies are your thing, make sure to subscribe and click on this playlist here as we explore and solve more growing issues in 2 minutes or less.